Welcome back to our channel, where we bring you the latest in gaming news and reviews. Today, we're taking a look at the much-anticipated survival game, Sons of the Forest. With its impressive graphics, improved AI, and new building mechanics, the game promises to take the genre to new heights. But does it live up to the hype? Let's find out. In 2018's The Forest, I had an unforgettable and terrifying encounter with a cannibal. Despite being an intelligent nightmare creature, it chose to observe me instead of attacking. While its sequel, Sons of the Forest, doesn't quite capture the same eerie thrill as the first game, it does improve upon the gameplay, story, and atmosphere of one of the best survival crafting games ever made. Though there were occasional reminders of its early access status, such as unfinished cutscenes and inconsistent performance, these issues were not as frequent as in many other games labeled as early access. Sons of the Forest takes place a few years after the events of The Forest and presents new challenges and mysteries to uncover on a beautiful, lush island that brought back memories of hiking in the American Pacific Northwest. The map is approximately 4 times the size of the original game, and the visuals are breathtaking. The landscape is filled with diverse vegetation, some of which can be used for sustenance or medicinal purposes, creating a level of richness and depth that is rarely seen in this genre. The lighting is also impressive, with clouds that cast shadows and alter the atmosphere of my exploration. These small details are often overlooked in games, but when executed well, they make a significant impact on the overall experience. However, the game is not yet fully optimized. Despite running on an RTX 3080 with DLSS set to maximum quality, I experienced occasional frame rate drops into the 20s when traveling long distances over land. Additionally, there were instances where leaves and rocks would appear suddenly, a few dozen meters in front of me, which disrupted my immersion in the game. I also encountered numerous sound glitches, especially during intense weather conditions or when multiple sounds played simultaneously. However, performance optimization is often one of the final aspects to be addressed during game development, and hopefully, these issues can be resolved during the early access phase. Sons of the Forest adds to the game's authenticity and danger by implementing a full system of seasons, including snowy winters that deplete edible vegetation and require you to monitor your body temperature to survive. It's a refreshing change of pace, but the weather effects could be developed further. Even on higher difficulty levels, being drenched and freezing is more of an inconvenience than a real threat to life. Interestingly, it's impossible to break ice on frozen bodies of water, even with the use of C4 explosives, which can be amusing. Nevertheless, the visual variety and difficulty shift provided by the seasons are enjoyable overall. One cannot forget the cannibals in Sons of the Forest, who are just as clever as they were in the original game. These enemies subvert the typical video game enemy archetype by prioritizing their own self-preservation over aggression. Every encounter with these intimidating foes is filled with tension, often resulting in a standoff where they may choose not to fight, especially if they are alone and you do not appear frightened. The cannibals' artificial intelligence has undergone significant upgrades since The Forest, including improved stealth, advanced social dynamics, and more diverse group behavior. The cannibals in Sons of the Forest are incredibly intelligent and versatile. They are capable of climbing trees to escape or attack you from above and can even set traps, camouflaging themselves in piles of leaves. It's a frightening experience, especially if you're caught outside at night and you can hear them nearby without being able to locate them. There are many interesting interactions you can have with these foes, but I will leave those discoveries to you. Suffice it to say, just when I thought I had seen all they had to offer, they continued to surprise me with new tactics and strategies. However, as you delve deeper into the island, the cannibals become the least of your concerns. Sons of the Forest introduces many more terrifying mutants than its predecessor, and they are significantly more dangerous. I appreciated the stronger emphasis on combat in this game, as it effectively increases tension, rather than simply checking a box or providing cheap thrills. Each encounter with a formidable opponent or a large group of enemies in Sons of the Forest is a nerve-wracking challenge that requires effective resource management, similar to the best parts of Resident Evil or The Last of Us. Ranged weapons offer some level of safety, but ammunition is scarce. Melee combat often results in taking damage, which depletes your armor and healing items. Additionally, without batteries for your flashlight, your chances of survival are slim. Personally, I would prefer to run out of bullets and food rather than lose my light source while exploring deep caverns. As a result, I had to carefully weigh the risks and rewards of each combat approach in Sons of the Forest. I had to ask myself whether it was worth losing arrows to acquire loot from a cannibal camp, or whether I should conserve ammo and use an axe to fight a mutant, even though it might require using precious medicine to heal. The combat mechanics themselves are precise and responsive, ensuring that I never felt cheated out of my resources due to poor hitboxes or sluggish animations. Even if you played The Forest, which takes players far beyond a leisurely stroll in the woods, it is unlikely that you would predict where Sons of the Forest will take you before the game concludes. If you didn't play the first game, be prepared for a wild ride. The horrifying storyline begins with the search for a billionaire and his family who disappeared in the wilderness, and it further explores the supernatural elements introduced in the first game, often in unexpected ways. Although some of the new elements were not to my liking, the game remained engaging and never became dull. The ending of Sons of the Forest is both awe-inspiring and currently unfinished. I won't spoil it, but it's one of the few areas where the game's early access status is evident, with missing dialogue and glitchy character interactions. In fact, I would advise waiting until the game is more polished before completing the story, as there is a great deal of other content to experience in the meantime. Sons of the Forest offers a new, completely modular building system that allows players to construct their ideal cannibal-proof fortress. The system enables players to place individual structure elements like windows and support beams wherever they desire, providing limitless possibilities. I spent approximately 5 or 6 hours of my 25-hour playtime setting up a base, but there's still so much more that can be accomplished, particularly when playing with a full crew of 8 people in multiplayer. I have not encountered any significant server issues, and the multiplayer mode runs smoothly. Sons of the Forest improves upon everything that its predecessor did well, making it a strong follow-up. Exploring the enormous, breathtaking, and treacherous island during various seasons is a joy in and of itself. The new base-building mechanics are entertaining and could keep players engaged for days without touching the main storyline. The game's enhanced enemy behavior and combat mechanics are unsettling and thoughtfully designed. It's already a fantastic game, and it's still in early access. With some performance optimization and refinement of the game's impactful but unpolished ending, it has the potential to become an incredible gaming experience. One of the most enjoyable aspects of a survival game is sharing experiences with friends and family, and Sons of the Forest excels in this regard. I often found myself pausing the game to share my latest adventure with my brother. Sometimes it was due to the startlingly intelligent behavior of the cannibals, or the endearing actions of my NPC companions. However, most of the time, it was due to the game's incredible jankiness, which seemed to affect nearly every aspect of the game. From glitchy trees to NPCs to constructing houses without permission, the game's jankiness can be both amusing and frustrating. Sons of the Forest's greatest strength is its ability to immerse players in a beautiful, unsettling, and dangerous world. The game establishes trust with the player, leading them to wholeheartedly invest in what feels like the next generation of open-world survival and crafting games. However, the game's current early access state quickly erodes that trust with unintuitive systems, game-breaking bugs, and a lack of content that ultimately makes the game feel hollow. Despite the gorgeous environment, the game's issues can significantly impact the overall experience. Like its predecessor, The Forest, Sons of the Forest, immediately immerses the player in the game's titular forest island, with little more than scattered travel cases for company. Knowing from experience with the first game, I immediately set out to find fresh water. The island is vast, and the nearest river is far away, giving me plenty of time to appreciate my surroundings during my initial trek. While I cannot definitively say that Sons of the Forest has the best forest in games, it is undoubtedly a strong contender for the title. The island is vast, and there is barely any indication of design, creating a genuine sense of a real place. As I chop down trees with the assistance of my companion Kelvin, more on him later, the wind would pick up, causing the forest canopy to sway so realistically that it made me pause and admire the scene. At times, the sky would darken, and I would look up to see that the sun had disappeared behind a cloud. It's a small detail, but it made me feel like I was genuinely there, and I wondered why more games don't incorporate such realistic features. While I could have spent hours exploring the forest's beauty, Sons of the Forest maintains a balance between tranquility and danger, instilling a constant sense of dread. Engaging with enemies in Sons of the Forest feels distinct from other games, thanks to the impressive AI of the NPCs. When encountering mutants for the first time, they appeared as fearful of me as I was of them. They would climb trees upon my approach and call out to one another. Some would try to provoke me by coming close to attacking before darting away again. Once the violence started, some mutants would grieve over their fallen companions, while others would flee. half dead, only to return with reinforcements the next day. After over 30 hours of gameplay, I have no doubt that survival games, and perhaps all games, should use Sons of the Forest as the gold standard for NPC behavior. The game's complex behavior isn't limited to just enemies. One of the significant differences in Sons of the Forest from its predecessor is that you're not the only survivor of the helicopter crash that starts the game. Kelvin, a fan favorite among the Sons of the Forest community, is a tragic figure, deaf and brain damaged from the crash, but eager to assist in any way possible. You can write notes for him on your notepad, giving him orders such as gathering food or logs, or instructing him to hide if enemies are nearby. Additionally, while the NPC companions are a nice touch, they can also be a bit of a liability. They often get stuck on terrain or run off in random directions, and their AI can be unpredictable in combat. At times, they can even get in the way of your own shots or block your path. And while the mutants' behavior is impressive, it can also be frustrating when they seem to have an almost uncanny ability to detect your presence, even when you're crouched and still. All of these issues can add up and make the game feel more frustrating than fun at times, especially for newcomers to the survival genre. And while there's a lot of potential here, it's hard not to feel like Sons of the Forest needs more time in early access to iron out its kinks and provide a more polished and accessible experience. In multiplayer, the building system really comes into its own. Watching my friends and I work together to fortify a beachside cabin was a joy. One of us would fell trees, another would split them into logs, and a third would ferry them over to the build site using a hand-built log sled. We'd all work together to hoist heavy structures into place, and I found myself grinning ear to ear when I realized we'd built a giant log castle with interlocking turrets and a deep trench for mutants to fall into. But as impressive as the building system is, it's not enough to carry Sons of the Forest on its own. Overall, Sons of the Forest is a game that rewards patience, experimentation, and careful planning. It's a game where every decision you make counts, whether it's how you build your base, how you approach combat, or how you interact with the NPCs around you. The island itself is one of the most immersive and believable game environments I've ever seen, and the intelligent enemy AI is a triumph. But there are still rough edges to be sanded down, especially when it comes to the clunky combat and the unintuitive inventory system. If you're willing to put up with a bit of jankiness, though, there's a lot to love in Sons of the Forest. Thanks for joining us for our review of Sons of the Forest. Despite some of its flaws, we can't deny the game's unique and immersive experience. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the game, so don't forget to leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more gaming content. See you in the next one.